History buffs, welcome to another lived story, a journey that takes us to explore one of the most iconic and tragic figures in Scottish history, William Wallace. His story is one of courage, the fight for freedom, and sadly, a brutal end. In the meantime, subscribe to the channel if you are new and leave a like. Now let's start. What is the life of a man who dares to defy a king worth? It was not just a question whispered within the cold walls of a castle. It was a silent cry that echoed in the heart of the Kingdom of England in 1305. For William Wallace, called Wilhelmus Wallace in English documents, the answer was not compromise, it was destruction. William Wallace was not born a nobleman, nor did he seek personal glory. He was a patriot, a man of flesh, blood, and fury. In 1297, at the height of English rule in Scotland, he and Andrew Moray led a revolt that changed everything. On September 11th, at the legendary Battle of Stirling Bridge, Wallace made one of the boldest moves in military history. It was not an impulsive attack, but a masterpiece of strategy. They waited until half the English army had crossed the narrow bridge. Then they struck. The English were trapped between the river and a hill. It was a shambles, a crushing victory, won with intelligence and courage. Moray, badly wounded, died soon after, and Wallace was left alone, the sole guardian of Scotland. But the glory was short-lived. In July 1298, Edward I, the feared Plantagenet, took personal command. The battle took place at Falkirk. Here, Wallace's fortunes turned against him. The Scottish cavalry betrayed him, abandoning the field. The Welsh archers broke his schiltrons, those famous walls of spears like twigs. Wallace was forced to flee, but he did not turn to guerrilla warfare. No, he traveled to France, seeking support, allies, hope. In 1305, he returned to Scotland, still believing that freedom was worth the risk. But one man was waiting for him, Sir John de Menteith, a Scottish knight, loyal to Edward. He captured him near Glasgow, betrayed, delivery made. Wallace was chained and shipped to London. August 23rd, 1305, Westminster Hall was packed. Nobles, bishops, judges, everyone wanted to see the monster, but there was no monster before them. There was a dirty, worn, proud man. He was accused of treason, murder, war. But Wallace, and this is certain, said something that changed everything. I have never sworn allegiance to Edward. I am not a traitor. I am a free man. But for Edward I, freedom was no excuse. The trial was a farce. No lawyer, no defense. The sentence was already written. It was not enough to kill him. He had to be broken. Publicly, symbolically. He was locked up in the Tower of London, probably the Salt Tower. Chained, starved, humiliated. There, every day could be his last. But Wallace did not beg. He did not break down. The chroniclers report no confessions or cries, only silence, or perhaps contempt. On the morning of August 23rd, he was dragged on a wooden cart. 2 miles amidst insults, spitting stones, children hitting him, men mocking him, a crowd looking for blood. At Smithfield, an execution camp outside London, the gallows awaited him, and the cruelest death conceived by English law, the ritual of high treason. First act, hanged, but not to death. Taken at the last moment, still conscious, then eviscerated. His entrails burned before his eyes. Finally, beheaded. His body, dismembered, a leg in Newcastle, an arm in Berwick, a piece in Perth, one in Stirling. His head, on top of London Bridge as a warning, a trophy. But something went wrong. Not in the punishment, in the lesson they wanted to teach. Wallace was not forgotten. On the contrary, he became a legend. Scottish monks, it is said, secretly recovered his remains to bury them in a Christian manner. His name, the one Edward wanted to extinguish, became prayer, song, inspiration. Robert the Bruce, who would later lead Scotland to independence, was deeply affected by this. In 1320, the Declaration of Arbroath would write, "It is in truth for liberty alone, which no man of worth will forsake, but at the cost of his life." And Wallace did. He paid it all for an idea. Today we can ask ourselves, what does power really represent? The throne that commands or the man who resists? Wallace did not win with weapons, but he won in time, because his silence at the moment of condemnation screamed louder than the cries of an entire army. And so ends the story of William Wallace. Not with a victory on the field, nor with a crown on his head, but with a broken body and a name that against all odds survived time, propaganda, and terror. For Edward I, Wallace was to be forgotten, an example to be destroyed, a mistake to be erased. And instead, he became the most powerful symbol Scotland had ever had, because Wallace wasn't just a warrior, he was an idea that power is not eternal, that kings tremble when a man with nothing left to lose refuses to kneel, that freedom, true freedom, is not bought with gold, nor imposed by force. It is won by sacrifice. Think about it. Scotland would not gain independence until years later, under Robert the Bruce. But without Wallace's courage, there might never have been a spark. There would never have been an awakening. He was the one who first broke the silence. He was the one who said no. And that no has spanned the centuries. It has inspired rebels, poets, revolutionaries. It has lit fires in hearts far from Stirling, from London, from Perth. Because his fight was not just Scottish. It was universal. It was human. Wallace was a man with fears, limitations, anger. But in the ultimate choice between bending and dying standing, he chose the latter. And that choice made him eternal. Today, his spirit lives on in stories, monuments, films. But more than that, it lives on in every act of resistance, in every gesture that challenges injustice, in every voice that rises when all seems lost. That's all for today. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Your opinion is very important to me and to support the channel. See you next time. Bye